If you're still making any one of these interview mistakes, you need to stop, because you are probably reducing your chances of getting that job offer. So let's dive straight in then. The very first interview mistake you want to avoid is not being prepared. I see so many candidates making this mistake, and that is that they either go there completely unaware of what the company does, what the role is about, and every other little details that they should actually be preparing beforehand. So the way you want to avoid this is simply by doing some research about the company ahead of time. Learn a little bit more about what exactly the job involves, what are the skills that you're going to learn whilst you're on the job, what are the requirements of the role, and how can you meet that. Another way that you can make sure that you are prepared for your interview is by making sure that you fully plan ahead. Okay, so know where the job location is, plan your route to the job. The second common mistake that you might be making when you're in an interview situation is not talking enough. Okay, so talking too little. If you are in an interview where the majority of the interview is basically being handled by the interviewer and they are the ones leading the entire interview, then this might not be good. Okay, so in an interview situation, ideally you want to make sure that you're doing 80% of the talking, and whilst the interviewer is doing 20%, i.e. mainly asking the questions. Because if you are not talking enough, this could actually insinuate that you lack confidence, or that you probably don't have great communication skills. Either way, you want to make sure that you focus on correcting this error. And one of the things you could do is making sure that you've actually practiced common interview questions ahead of time. Practicing that will actually help you improve your communication skills, so that when you're in an interview setting, you're actually able to put your points across in a concise manner. Okay, the next common mistake I see so many candidates making is simply not asking questions at the end of the interview. Yes, believe it or not, that is actually a common interview mistake, and it's important that you stop doing that. If you get to the end of the interview and the interview asks you, do you have any questions for us? The last thing you want to say is no. Okay, because this basically shows that you have not done any preparation. That's just what it shows. It also shows that you simply don't have an interest in that organization. In some cases, a lot of interviewers are not going to be happy with this. In fact, I'll say in the majority of cases, a lot of interviewers will not be happy with a candidate that answers no to this particular question. So instead, what you should do is to prepare 2 to 3 questions ahead of time, okay, before you get to the interview. Ask them about what the culture of the company is like. Ask them, ask the interviewer how long the interviewer has been there and what their opinion about the organization is. There are also other different types of common end of interview questions that you could ask, which would at least show that you're a candidate who has done enough thorough research about the organization and about the role that you are looking to apply for, and this will come across a lot more better than you simply saying no, I don't have any questions. Next common mistake I see a lot of candidates making is actually talking negatively or criticizing their former employer or their former colleagues. This actually doesn't sit well with a lot of employers. In fact, this is something you should never ever do, okay, because it doesn't reflect well on you. It doesn't show that you are someone who is actually able to collaborate and work well with others and handle difficult situations. So instead, what you actually want to do is to be very, very diplomatic about the way in which you actually talk about your previous employer or your previous colleagues. If you're not able to, or if you're struggling to be diplomatic about it, it's best to avoid talking about them altogether. The next common mistake you definitely want to avoid in an interview situation is giving generic interview responses. Okay, so this basically means you are not giving detailed enough responses to the questions that are being asked. So how do you avoid this? You want to make sure that ahead of the interview you have done enough research, you have been quite thorough with the examples that you're going to actually prepare and put forward in your interview. A lot of your interview answers needs to focus on what you specifically have done and what you specifically have achieved as a result of that particular situation or that particular role that you were doing. So hopefully these have given you some thoughts on things you definitely need to avoid when you are in an interview situation. I have a free guide which actually tells you 15 different common interview mistakes that you need to avoid, and also how you need to make sure that you're correcting them. If you're interested in grabbing a copy of this, then please do check for the link down in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.